Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Substance use disorder and addiction is so isolating. And so, as a Black woman in recovery, hope must be loud. It grows louder when you ask for help and you're vulnerable. It is the thread that lets you know that no matter what happens, you will be okay.
When we learn the power of hope, recovery is possible. Find out how at startwithhope.com. Brought to you by the National Council for Mental Wellbeing, Shatterproof, and the Ad Council.
Welcome to True Crime Garage. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, thanks for listening. I'm your host, Nick, and with me as always, he's the deadliest catch without the crabs. Ladies and gentlemen, the cat.
It's good to be seen and good to see you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for telling a friend.
We are still sipping on Jet Boat Citra Hazy IPA. The hazy portion of this IPA is what fills this baby out, giving it more body. The pine here is both great and necessary as it highlights the hop flavor and brings it up a bit. Garage grade 4.25 bottle caps out of 5. And here's a cheers to some of our friends with great flavor as well. First up, a double-fisted cheers to Fab Cab and the Preacher Man from Spring Grove, Illinois.
And a big We Like Your Chip goes out to Stephanie from Omaha.
Here's a cheers to Caroline Bryan from Benicia, California. And last but certainly not least, we have a shout out to Sophie from Fond du Lac in Minnesota, who says, remember, Captain, it's double or nothing, and see you at CrimeCon.
Yeah, I'm going to have to bring some cash with me.
Everyone we just mentioned went to truecrimegarage.com and contributed to this week's beer fund. We were able to fill up the old garage fridge thanks to each and every one of you, and for that, we thank you.
Yeah, BWRU in Beer Run. Go to truecrimegarage.com, sign up on the mailing list, and make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. And Colonel, that's enough of the business.
All right, everybody, gather around, grab a chair, grab a beer. Let's talk some true crime. On Memorial Day weekend in 1991, Michelle Ledzinski, then 21 years old, told police that her 5-year-old son, Timmy, vanished at a carnival in Sayreville, New Jersey. She claimed he went missing while she was standing in line to get him a soda, prompting what would turn into a massive and nationwide search for the little boy. Now, as you can see from episode 1, Michelle is a big part of the investigation, not just because she is the mother of the missing boy, but there are a lot of persons involved in the investigation who are suspicious of the mother and her statements regarding the night that her son went missing. Now, as said, a major red flag for me, part of what we covered in episode 1 was her moving. Like, I get what she's saying about moving away because of all the media attention and the cameras that were on her home at the time. But I've never liked it when the parents of a missing child move away, especially this early in the case. As the reports go, it was roughly 2 weeks. So about 2 weeks after the boy goes missing that she moves.
Yes, normally I would agree with you, but Michelle is not stable. So she's changing jobs often. She changes her location of where she lives often. And also she's having financial difficulties. So
True.
Was this excuse to get out of whatever lease she was in or whatever because she was having financial difficulties?
Well, and that's a keen observation there, my friend, because if she were, as I imagine, probably living paycheck to paycheck, that means, look, the rent ain't going to pay itself, right? So if your son goes missing, your child goes missing, going to work is not your first priority. She may have had to call in a favor to the landlady and say, hey, can I step out of this property because I'm not going to be able to make the rent anymore. I'm not working currently. We do know that she had relatives that she relied on often. So I'm assuming a move meant that she went to go stay with folks that could help her. So she's not leaving the area per se. But again, look, and this will actually go along with some of her statements later to police that I think doubles down on why it's a concern for me and a bit of a red flag. At the center of this, to me, mom always leaves the light on for her kid. The good ones, anyway. Always leaves the front porch light on, letting the kid know, we are here. We have been waiting for you to return. In part, Captain, that's why we called it the Porch Light Project. Leaving that porch light on for those lost ones. Keeping hope alive that there will be somebody will return, somebody will be found, or there will be some form of justice for the wrongs that were committed against that person. Go to porchlightonline.org to learn more if you wish or to participate. Some of the investigators were convinced of one major detail in this scenario that turns everything in this case upside down. Some were simply convinced that Timmy was never at that carnival. He was never at that carnival that evening.
Right.
Now, of course, if this is true, that leaves one simple fact. Whatever happened to him, whatever happened to Timmy to cause his disappearance happened before Michelle herself arrived at the carnival. And therefore she is responsible and she knows what happened to her son.
The other question I have is the individuals that she ran into that were related to her, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Did she know that they were going to be there?
That's a good question, because when I first started reviewing this case, one portion that was quite confusing to me was, remember, she was supposed to pick up a niece and take the niece to the carnival, or as the story goes. One of the two people that she bumps into at the carnival is her niece. So Michelle comes from a larger family. She's got a bunch of siblings. It's my understanding that the niece that she bumps into is not the same as the one she was supposed to pick up.
Right.
The interesting thing here is the statement that the niece, the person that was with her when she bumps into Michelle, is also someone so that niece's name is Jennifer. The person with her is Jennifer's age, and also someone who had babysat Timothy at least on one occasion. So the people she's bumping into know both her and her son. I find that to be rather interesting because they have insights into both the person that they find who is looking for her son and the person who is missing. People close to Michelle described her as devoted to her son, devoted to Timmy. Yet after the disappearance, investigators and to some observers, they were suspicious of her demeanor, believing that Michelle did not seem affected in the way that one would expect, saying that she showed very little emotion during the search for her boy. Now, her father does go on record saying that that's my daughter. That's how she's always been. She doesn't show a lot of emotion when she's around people. She doesn't react dramatically to situations when she's in front of a crowd or around a bunch of people. But behind closed doors, he says that she is very emotional, and it's his statement that she was emotional behind closed doors regarding her son being missing.
But like I said, every point in this story, there's an argument for looking at her as a suspect and not looking at her as a suspect.
Then came the part of this investigation and the part of the story that is so very difficult. It's her changing her accounts of the night in question. So I was hesitant, Captain, to go through that night as Michelle first described it, as it has changed a lot over time. Her story has changed from slight variations to extremely different versions of that same story.
Right.
We will circle back to that in a bit, but the changing stories led to further questioning from police investigators and FBI. And further questioning of Michelle then led to her failing 2 polygraph examinations. So Michelle took 2 polygraph tests, one administered by the FBI. This was 2 days after the night at the carnival, and another about a week later. The second one was conducted by the Middlesex County Prosecutor's Office. As said, she failed both. According to officials, test administrators described her as emotionally inconsistent and unusually focused on how she was doing during the exam. This one's tricky. This point of the case is tricky for me because we've had experts who administer these tests and say that when they are conducted properly, they're a very great tool. We've had law enforcement members, both FBI and police, who have stated that they can be a good tool and you could use them in a number of different ways in your investigation or when talking to a witness or a suspect, but not to put a whole lot of weight into if somebody passes or fails. Now, back to something that John Douglas told us, legendary FBI agent, criminal profiler, told us that oftentimes when interviewing a parent, he said especially a father, right, but he did say when interviewing a parent, he would expect them to fail the exam because they hold a certain level of guilt even when they're innocent in the matter, because a parent naturally wants to protect their child, and if your child is missing or dead, you failed to protect them. So you are guilty in that regard. What I'm curious about here, Captain, when we see certain cases where the police once they seem to hone in on somebody, and it looks like they're really honing in on Michelle here, their stance on everything and even their posturing on everything is always presenting that same argument that everything points to this person. Everything in our investigation is pointing to this person. So, of course, her failing 2 polygraph examinations points to her being guilty and doing something to her son, being responsible for why he's missing. But if Douglas is right, she failed because of guilt. I want to know, what were the questions she failed on? Are those questions that would be, one would fail because the person holds some guilt in their hearts and on their minds, right, not because they did something wrong, but because they couldn't protect their son? Or were these questions that actually would point to her being a good suspect for his disappearance? And also to the average Joe, as we said, many watching on TV found her to be far too composed during her time with the media. We went through some of the good parenting statements from folks in episode 1. Now let's look at the other side of that coin. These are statements made to investigators and to the DA's office. This is from 2 men that dated Michelle and from one of her babysitters. Now, she had a lot of babysitters, so let's keep in mind, we don't know, it's never been reported if this was somebody who babysat often or if it was a once or twice thing. Now, of these men, This is from a man who for a short time was actually engaged to Michelle. So this is a former fiance. He was sharply critical of Michelle's parenting. He said he believed that she wasn't attentive enough to the boy. And he said that he thought that Michelle acted more like an older sister than a mother. He pointed to an incident that he claimed illustrated the lax supervision.
Yeah, but a neglectful parent is one thing. To murder your child is a whole different animal.
Well, and to be clear, using his words, he doesn't say neglectful. He says that she was just not as attentive as he thought she should be and that had lax supervision for a youngster. He's pointing to an incident when Timothy needed stitches after being bitten by a dog that lived next door. Okay. And the man who was the fiance at the time said that he had warned Michelle multiple times about letting the boy play outside in the backyard unattended, especially while the dog was out there and loose.
Right.
From my understanding, that engagement ended well before Timothy disappeared, but criticism of Michelle's decisions did not come only from this one romantic partner. As we said, from one of Timmy's babysitters. This babysitter described an occasion when she was watching Timmy late at night while Michelle was out. And according to her account, Michelle called that night, asked her to allow Timmy to leave with a man who the babysitter said that she did not know. So the babysitter tells mom no, so she refuses. Michelle doesn't like this. She returned home, and according to the sitter, she forced Timothy into a car that was driven by Michelle's then boyfriend at the time, his name Fred Bruno. And the babysitter said that she believed that little Timothy was terrified of Bruno.
And we do have evidence that she has a bad picker.
Or trouble staying in a relationship.
Right. But again, this goes back to what I said. I mean, she's not stable in almost any aspect of her life.
True.
But some of that could just be maturity.
Well, she's 23, right? We are looking at this as she's a mother, but we also need to.
Is still young. And
23 is very young.
Yeah.
I told you, I've said on the show before, I had a soft spot on my head till I was 26.
Maybe 27. We're not.
No, don't you start. Okay, so
doctor was still concerned.
That's right. Put on a helmet, sir.
Yes.
Michelle Ledzinski's inconsistent accounts are what we need to get into. We said we would circle back to it. So the investigation into Timothy Wiltsey's disappearance highlighted multiple inconsistencies in statements from his mother, Michelle. And as I said, some of them are slightly different versions of that story, and others are drastically different. So Michelle told investigators that she and Timothy spent that afternoon at Homedale Park before going to an evening carnival, right? The park police reported that the parking lot where she said she parked her car was actually closed that day. They said that they found no one who saw her and Timothy at that park.
Yeah, that's
it's
a little bit of a red flag.
It's suspicious, but it's also not 100% conclusive, right? She could have just parked her car elsewhere. Mm-hmm. There could have been a discrepancy there. And I'm sure I've been to a park or you've been to a park at one point and nobody else saw you there.
Well, especially if I wear all camo. Now,
we also pointed out that the last confirmed sighting of Timothy by someone other than Michelle was that neighbor who said that they had saw the two of them earlier that day. So we have that confirmed sighting, but the problem is after that, other than these two carnival workers who didn't know Michelle, didn't know Timmy, that said that I think that's who I saw, we don't have anybody else saying that they saw Timmy and mom together that evening. Now, more than a week after Timothy disappeared, Michelle was interviewed by police in Sayreville and claimed that 2 men with a knife took her son and threatened her into silence.
Wait.
That's a much different story than I was
lost.
buying a soda and turned around and he was gone. So let's go back to the original statement. I was hesitant to report what her original statement was because there's been multiple variations of that, and I don't know where those variations come from. So in some of those variations, she and Timmy are in line together at the refreshment stand to buy a soda. She's waiting on change for the $10 bill, turns and he's gone.
Mm-hmm.
The other variation of that is that he was in line for a ride and she didn't want him to lose his place. He wanted something to drink. The refreshment stand was right nearby the ride. She walks over just a few steps, hops in line to get the soda. After she gets her change for the $10 bill, turns back, expecting to see him still in line for that ride, nearing the front of the line, and he's no longer there. So that's a slightly different variation, but I don't know where I don't know that both of them, I can't say with 100% certainty that they both came from Michelle. What I can say with 100% certainty is this version of that same story, which is completely different, did come from Michelle, and it was a statement that she gave to police at the Sayreville Police Department. A week after her son went missing, she says 2 men with a knife took her son, threatening her into silence.
That's bizarre.
When police challenged her on this, the report is that she walked out of the interview. And that later that same day, she returned to the police department with her sister and a friend and recanted her statement from that day.
But it makes you wonder, how was that questioning going? Was she volunteering this information up, or were they... We've seen this happen multiple times where it's not an interrogation, it's a questioning that turns into an interrogation.
Where it's accusatory, yeah.
Right. And the person starts going, I'm trying to remember. And then they start tossing out these bullshit stories. I mean, sometimes claiming that they're the killer, right? I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to figure out, so is it possible that that's what this was? And then she goes, well, maybe these 2 guys at knife point kidnapped. You know what I mean? So.
Right. We've seen that in multiple cases. The yogurt shop case comes to mind.
Yeah.
But it doesn't end there, my friend. The next day, this is during a long confrontational interview. So this is reported as being very long, very confrontational. She seemed to offer up a third version of the story. It still involves the 2 men, but now involves a woman. So she says 2 men and a woman took Timothy after the woman offered to watch him briefly while Michelle went to get sodas so he could keep his place in line for a ride that he wanted to go on. Michelle said that she knew the woman as Ellen. Now she says what's tricky about this Ellen person is it's unclear if she claims to have known the woman by name or by a nickname or remembers her to be Ellen, because she describes this Ellen as a local go-go dancer who at one time was a customer at the bank where she had worked at one time. She worked there as a teller. So this story is very complicated because she claims that this woman would cash her checks at the bank where she worked. And that's how she knew the woman. What's weird about this story, though, and I'll circle back to Ellen. Mm-hmm. It's weird on all kinds of levels. Yeah. I don't know why I always say that. It's one thing that's
sometimes
weird.
You're an idiot.
I'm a moron. It's that soft spot. It never. It never.
Well,
brain
you
damage.
said it healed.
It did.
Now you're changing your
solid
story
now, but it's brain damage.
Sometimes it opens back up.
But remember, there were teenage boys that said that they thought they saw a little boy with 2 men and a woman leaving the park, leaving the festival.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I was going to bring up.
So that is crazy. But then, okay. So then the FBI is like, all right, well, let's figure out who this Ellen person is. And it's not their first investigation. So what do? They go to the bank, who's going to have records of all of these transactions.
Right.
But they only need to hone in on the time that she worked there. And I don't know how long she worked at this bank, but we went through, we'll go through some of her other work history later. But some of these jobs she only held for a handful of months. And what the FBI says is at no point does a woman named Ellen cash a check at that bank when Michelle worked there. So if this woman exists, either she has the name completely wrong or the woman doesn't exist.
Or it's a nickname.
And she made it up. So basically the FBI, their statement is, we tried, we cannot locate Ellen, in air quotes, in any capacity. And we are actually unsure if this woman even exists.
Yeah, but then the eyewitnesses that see the two men with the lady and the child.
Mm-hmm.
But there's probably a lot of two men and a lady and a little child at the carnival.
Now, remember the boyfriend, Fred Bruno, who the babysitter said she thought Timmy was terrified of this guy?
Yes.
We need to point out here, like, Fred Bruno was beyond cooperative with police to the point of like trying to help them snare her in some kind of trap. Okay. So he's her boyfriend at the time. Police arranged with Michelle's boyfriend, Fred Bruno, to call her while they sat in and monitored the conversation, trying to get to see what she would say about her son being missing, what happened that night, and so on and so forth.
Right.
During this call, she refused to discuss details by phone and told him she would talk to him, but only in person. So the next day, the two meet up. Bruno picks her up. They're in his vehicle, but prior to him arriving, they planted a microphone in Fred Bruno's vehicle. He knows this. She does not.
Well, some people report that they shoved it right up his butt.
Now, during this conversation, so they talk about Timmy being missing. And during this conversation, what was recorded on that butt phone was that Michelle repeated the Ellen account and said that she had originally withheld it at first because she feared that people would think that she was a bad mother for leaving Timothy briefly with someone she barely knew.
Hi, it's Sierra Miller. I can't wait for you to check out my new collection of shoes and accessories at Designer Shoe Warehouse. If you love shoes as much as I do, then trust me, I got you. From cute sneakerinas to the perfect flip-flops to stunning heels, these shoes are all style, no drama. It's a girl's girl summer, and DSW has just the shoes. Shop the Sierra Miller collection right now at your DSW store or dsw.com.
Let's check in on the Serta counting sheep.
Hey, Uncle Number One, why aren't we counting anymore?
Long ago, Serta invented the Perfect Sleeper mattress.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. It says the all-new Serta Perfect Sleeper with a Q4 support system has 4-in-1 perfectly interlinked coils that help relieve aches and back pain for perfect sleep night after night.
We'll never get counted again.
Nope.
Serta, we make the world's best mattress.
This Memorial Day, save on Serta Perfect Sleeper X at a retailer near you.
Breathe in. Feel the sense of calm that comes from having up to $300 in overdraft protection with Go2 Bank. Now...
Did you say $300?
Yes. Now, back to our breathing.
So if I overspend my balance, Go2 Bank has my back up to $300?
Yes. Can we breathe out now? Less worries, more zen, with over $300 in overdraft protection. Tap to open an account today. Eligible direct deposits and opt-in required for overdraft protection. Fees, terms, and conditions apply.
Courage. I learned it from my adoptive mom. Hold my hand.
You hold my hand.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care at adoptuskids.org. You can't imagine the reward. Brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
All right, we are back. Talk hands in the air.
You used to call me on my butt phone.
Yeah.
All right, let's get serious here, Captain. It's a serious situation.
When I put my phone up my butt, I like to put it on vibrate, just for the record.
Well, that's one way you can guarantee that no one at CrimeCon will pick up your cell phone from our table. All right. The following day, we have Michelle. She's at the police station once again. She's being interviewed once again. And this time, the interview is reported to have taken about 5 hours. During this interview, she repeats the Ellen story, but she amended it a little bit, adding that at one point, one of the men held a knife to her throat. And I tell you what, I've heard even more versions than this about these different stories. I think there was an account where at one time they had threatened to cut the boy's face if she didn't shut up. So when challenged by police, according to police, she's the one that ended the interview abruptly, telling police, hey, if you want to charge me with something, charge me. If not, I'm leaving. Part of this story is crazy. And this goes back to the idea of she moved, because during that interview, what police would say is that not only did she repeat the same account of the Ellen story, but she's also saying that they told her, these mystery men and the woman, Ellen, told Michelle that they were taking the boy and that they would return him unharmed in about a month if she stayed quiet.
Yeah, but this reminds me of the case where the boys are missing, but the dad says that he left them with somebody, but he won't tell people who he left them with.
Yeah, that's another case out of Michigan.
Don't go to Michigan.
The Skelton boys.
Yeah, Skelton brothers.
This part is important that we report this as well, because after this interview, her friends are concerned about her appearance, her well-being. They drove her straight from the interview to the hospital, and she was like malnourished, dehydrated. She appeared to be having a mental breakdown as well. So good for her friends. Maybe some of this plays into what she's saying during this interview.
Right.
It's really hard to say. She's going to stick to this story, though, for a very long time, as we're about to see. 5 days later, an investigator from the county prosecutor's office interviewed Michelle at her home with a similar result. She became increasingly hostile, gave short answers, then burst into tears, said her son was the most important thing in the world to her, and ordered the investigators to leave the home just before Timothy's birthday. So now we're in early August 1991. Renewed media attention followed his birthday. Michelle went and visited her sister in Florida. Remember, one of her sisters is down in Florida. She went down to Florida to visit her sister for 2 weeks, and during that time, she sought counseling. Now we get to the sneaker part of this story. We have to get into the sneaker story. This is from the Home News out of New Brunswick, New Jersey. They ran an article by Jennifer Hutchinson dated November 19th, 1991. Pay attention to that date, November 19th, 1991. Mm-hmm. The headline was, "Missing Boy's Sneaker May Have Been Located." The article included a map marking where a sneaker was found.
Yeah, but this sneaker is interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So a brief description here, a color white child's size 13 sneaker was found in a swampy area of Edison, New Jersey. And the article says that sneaker that was found may have been worn by the missing boy, Timothy, who's been missing since May 25th, 1991. As the story goes, the discovery and then the handoff of this piece of potential evidence, October 26th. So almost a month before the news article. October 26, 1991, Daniel O'Malley, he's a science teacher at Bound Brook Junior and Senior High School. He says he found a mud-coated sneaker while walking in a marsh near Raritan Center, which is a large industrial park off of Woodbridge Avenue near Middlesex County College. So he brought the sneaker to the Sayreville police, who were investigating Timothy's disappearance, and police summoned Timothy's mother, Michelle, to come to the police department to inspect the sneaker. So this is all going on in October. We'll get to why the news article came almost a month later here in a second. But what police say is that when she gets to the police department, she looks over the sneaker. She could not confirm that it was Timothy's. And I need to be clear about this. This is where parts of the story get very difficult because we don't get to have the privilege of sitting in on that conversation between mom and detectives. All we get is mom talking to the newspapers. So what we get is basically the detectives say, mom comes in and told us it wasn't Timothy's sneaker. Mom tells the newspapers, she's a bit vague, but she's kind of like, I can't confirm, or I can't say that it is his. I can't say that it's not his, which could also be what she told police.
Yeah, it's very difficult because I think simply you go, these are newer shoes that she bought. How can she not recognize them?
True, but she's looking at this shoe in October.
Yeah.
The boy went missing in almost exactly 5 months prior. And she's simply saying, look, when they showed me the shoe, it was covered in heavy mud. And the time that's gone by since his disappearance, I can't confirm that it was Timmy's. So her version of how that went down is she says, I couldn't say it was his. I couldn't say that it wasn't his. Police tell the paper she said it wasn't his.
Right.
Now, what we do know happened, this is fact, we can prove this. She did later return to the police station with another pair of Timmy's shoes. And she said that she brought them to the police department to compare the soles of the shoes because she said, hey, look, my son, when he wears his shoes, he tends to wear down one side of the shoe.
Yeah.
And she said, when I was there looking at the shoe that you asked me to identify, I didn't think to look at the soles. So here's the sole of the shoe. So here's some shoes that he wore prior. Can you compare them? Now, regarding the shoes that he was wearing at the time that he went missing, this is months before the sneaker was found. She did give police a shoe box, the empty shoe box for the pair of shoes that he was wearing. Okay, so the shoe box would describe the shoes, right? It says green Ninja Turtle. It was a green Ninja Turtles box stating white, color white, size 13, stock number 0758. The sneaker that was found was white in color, youth size 13. It shows Raphael, the one that wears the red color turtle but it only shows his face from my understanding. Now, the stock number listed inside matches 0758. Now, a local shoe store manager did caution police and said sometimes different styles from the same maker can share a stock number. But again, police discounted it as being Timmy's shoe, which seems bizarre to me. The stock number is the same. The description's the same. You're already not trusting mom by this time. So why then do you say to the papers later, well, she said it wasn't his, so we took her word for it? That seems weird
Bizarre.
to me.
Yeah.
You either trust somebody or you don't. Like, you can't pick and choose.
Well, you can.
Well, I guess they did, right?
They did. So
yeah.
Evidence that you can.
They said that when they originally interviewed Michelle, she reacted strongly in October that the shoe was not her son's. She told the police during that conversation that Timmy's shoes had many Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on them, including villains. And the stamps showed their bodies, not just faces. So those details obviously would not have matched up with the shoe that found. Now, this Dan O'Malley dude, I like this guy. Other than Timmy, he's my favorite guy, my favorite person in the story. So O'Malley said he found the sneaker after he was attending a baseball card show with a friend that was held at the Raritan Center Exposition Center at the Raritan Center Exposition Hall in October of 1991. He and the friend drove down Olympic Drive. So this is described as a deserted, unlit road with no houses. They say that they parked at the end of this road and they walked into the swamp area, the marsh area, to look at wildlife. They're both into wildlife. And so they just wanted to take a little walk in the area while they're out there. He says he spots the shoe, and it seemed familiar to him because he had followed the story in the paper. So he turns it into the police.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the newspaper gets the story from Dan O'Malley, not from the police, not from Michelle. They get the story from Dan O'Malley because he goes to the newspaper and he says, look, I'm a little annoyed. I turned this thing in a month ago. Nobody's talked about it at all. Nobody's called me to ask me about it. So I went to the newspaper. Well, police did say that the area near the Raritan Center had been searched multiple times, saying that detectives had received phone calls from psychics. They had received at least one anonymous tip about the area. And of course, the discovery of the sneaker prompted searches of that area. I have listed that this area was searched 3 times after the sneaker was found, roughly within the month that it was found. But these searches turned up nothing of importance. The tricky thing here, Captain, and I don't mean to be overly critical, but I question how the thoroughness of these searches and how many resources and how much effort was put into them. I don't know. It's sometimes these things, these details in these stories really bother me because as bad as this case is, a missing boy, as sad as that is, you have to look at it from an officer's perspective and a detective's perspective. While you don't want any kid to ever go missing, isn't this the stuff that you live for? Isn't this what you get up like?
Mm-hmm.
Some of the people that work in this line of work that go into these careers, they do it for the excitement. And if I'm involved in a missing persons case and somebody tells me that they found a shoe that could be the shoe of the missing person,
yeah,
you're going to have to drag me out of that area. I'm going to be there day and night looking for something. Like, shit, this is the break we needed. It's been 5 months. Regarding Michelle, she spoke with the newspaper as well. She expressed a lot of concern. She was concerned at the possibility that the sneaker might be Timothy's. She said, look, the thought of it being my son's shoe makes me very uneasy. She said, I want my son to be found. I want him to be okay when he's found. I want him to be wearing his sneakers when he's found. I don't want him scattered all over the place. And she added that if the sneaker is not his, she would be happy about that. That is really where the case rounds out and ends the year of 1991. So now we move into 1992. In March of 1992, the case shifts toward the Raritan Center that we just discussed. The ongoing investigation into the disappearance of 5-year-old Timothy Wiltsey reached a new phase in March of 1992, with law enforcement turning its attention more deliberately towards searches and physical evidence. By that point, the case had already accumulated interviews, theories, and repeated retellings of events. The investigators needed now something concrete, something that could anchor the story to a place, to an item, or a timeline that could be tested and figured out if these items or timeline is true.
Right.
So we have an FBI agent. The FBI's been involved in this, as we said, since the beginning, but an FBI agent assigned to the case decided, hey, you know what? We're going to interview Michelle again. And this time she did not come alone. She had an attorney present with her during this interview. When questioned, she did what she had done before. She reiterated the Ellen story, the same account that she had previously provided to investigators. Nothing about that interview, at least on the record, sounded to be new or a dramatic break in the case.
Right.
It was another official conversation, but her earlier narrative still stood. But here's where the case starts moving, because the FBI agent did not stop with Michelle. So he interviews Dan O'Malley again, the guy who found the sneaker, and he wants to hone in on this Raritan Center located in Edison, New Jersey. And that sneaker, if it did belong to the boy, obviously would be significant, right? An object found in a location that demanded explanation. The agent began interviewing Michelle's friends and family again. And during those conversations, he uncovered a detail that reframed the geography of the case. Investigators learned that 3 years earlier, Michelle had actually worked for 6 months at a fulfillment center located in that Raritan Center complex. Now, what's even more troubling about this is prior to finding out this information, they had asked her to provide them with her work history. The work history that she provided did not have any mention of her working that 6 months at the Raritan Center complex. Which I'm guessing 6 months at a job for her would be longer than most of her employment locations. I guess in her defense, I would say it was 3 years prior, but again, if she's providing the best that she can, her work history, if they asked for it to include 4 years or 5 years, that should have been in there. And like you said, 6 months would be a big chunk of time during that time frame. Right. So they go and they find some people that used to work with her, some coworkers and people that knew her during her time when she worked for the fulfillment center at the Raritan Center. And a couple of people said they had remembered that she was known to have taken frequent walks around the complex. Now that meant something important to their investigation because that fulfillment center sat within a few blocks of where the sneaker had been found. Right. So the discovery becomes more interesting, more troubling. Makes you want to do more searches. And did she hide the fact that she worked in that area? When she was later asked about it directly, she didn't try to duck or dodge the question. She did acknowledge, she said, yes, I did in fact work at that fulfillment center. So the omission itself becomes part of the investigation. Again, whether intentional or not, difficult to say. Right. But the linkage would drive the investigators to the next step in the investigation. So the following month, in late April of 1992, a 2-day search near Olympic Drive. So during this 2-day time period, law enforcement teams conducted a full search of a mostly marshy area near Olympic Drive in the Raritan Center. It did not take long for the search to produce results. Investigators quickly located a second sneaker matching the first one that had been found. Not good. Like the first one, Captain, it was Timmy's size. The report is the second sneaker was found roughly 150 feet from the location of the first. The search teams also found a pillowcase at about that same location. Then about 2 hours later, searchers located something far more damning. At a point approximately 400 to 550 feet further away from the sneaker location, they found a skull and 10 other bones. The remains were discovered in and around a truck tire that had been dredged from the bottom of Red Root Creek. The area continued to yield objects that felt haunting to the investigation. A Ninja Turtle balloon was found. So was a 10-foot by 3-foot blue and white blanket. This was found buried into the embankment, positioned about 15 to 20 feet above the creek bed where the bones were located. So we got these shoes, a pillowcase, a tire in the creek, scattered bones, a balloon, a blanket. The identification. Was she able to identify any of the other items? That's interesting. I don't know how quickly she was notified or asked to identify these items. She does look at them at some point, but from my understanding, so what we get is the medical examiner, of course, is going to get involved, and the skull is confirmed to be the remains of Timothy Wiltsey. This identification was made and confirmed through dental records. Right. The county medical examiner ruled the death a homicide, but even with that ruling, the most critical specifics remained out of reach, right? Due to the advanced decomposition, the time of death, location of death, and medical cause of death could not be determined. So she's not there when he's found. She is later informed. So she's informed that night after they positively make the identification. According to the FBI agent, Michelle was unemotional when told that the remains were found. She was unemotional when questioned about a detail that investigators could not ignore. Why was his remains found 0.4 miles from a former workplace?
Right.
0.4 miles from a former workplace that you had initially not disclosed to police.
Absolutely.
Now,
and then also the changing of the stories. That's something that I think law enforcement is going to have a very hard time getting past.
Mm-hmm. I think listeners of the show are going to have a hard time getting past that.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're looking for your son. I don't care about a guy with a knife. Anyway, so now she did say, look, when they're questioning her and they bring up, look, you did not disclose to us that you had worked at this place, and it's so very close to where we eventually found the skull of your missing son.
Yeah.
She does say, and I don't think they could find anybody to refute this. She does say, yes, I took walks around the center, but I walked around the complex where I worked. It's 0.4 miles from where you found him. She says, I'm unaware that Olympic Drive, so this is the street nearest where the body was found. I don't even know what that road is. I don't know that road exists.
Right.
So
I think it'd also
it's
be
difficult.
Interesting just to take her other locations of where she worked and to go, well, how far away was his remains from those locations as well? Because if one is 0.4 and the other one is 0.6 and the other one is 1 point whatever, then you go, well, maybe that doesn't mean much of anything.
Exactly. And if the others are a great distance and this is not, then this is a one-off and it carries more weight.
Right.
So now, we do get lab testing, but really, dude, I think this just ends up being unanswered questions about these items that were found near the remains. So the physical evidence went to the FBI lab, but testing did not produce the hoped for breakthrough in the case. According to these reports, no trace evidence was found on the items recovered during the search. As for the blanket, the 10-foot by 3-foot blanket, reports said that neither Michelle nor her parents recognized it as coming from their home. So they were shown the blanket. The blanket remained an object without a confirmed origin after these questions posed to her parents and to Michelle, despite being found in a location that now carried an enormous investigative weight to it. The pillowcase raised its own unresolved question. It was not known whether the pillowcase was shown to anyone who might recognize it. We don't have any statements regarding the pillowcase. But the case really transformed, obviously. The search moved from a sneaker found near an industrial complex to the confirmed recovery of Timothy Wiltsey's remains, along with objects found nearby that hinted at movement, concealment, or disposal. Yet despite that grim clarity, the investigation was still left straining for the connecting thread that would explain how the pieces fit together.
Twists and turns, what to believe, what not to believe, evidence that points for or against Timothy's mother being the prime suspect. So much more to get to. Until then,
be good, be kind, and don't litter.
Walmart shoppers, meet the debit card designed with you in mind. The Walmart Money Card offers up to $75 cash back on purchases at Walmart each year. Early direct deposit, overdraft protection, and so much more. When Walmart is your everyday store, you need a card to match. That's the Walmart Money Card. Open your account today. The Walmart Money Card is issued by Green Dot Bank, member FDIC. Fees, terms, and conditions apply. Visit walmartmoneycard.com to learn more.
Courage. I learned it from my adoptive mom. Hold my hand.
You hold my hand.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care at adoptuskids.org. You can't imagine the reward. Brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.